In this lesson, we're going to continue looking at background services, and we're going to focus on background threading. Our previous lesson, we saw a service run in the foreground, but it blocked the UI while it was running, which is not desirable. In this lesson, we're going to look at how to background thread a service in a couple of different ways. Our first button will run a service that has traditional .NET threading. And our second button will start a thing called an intent service, which is an Android object used for background threading. So we'll take a look at the traditional .NET threading first. And we still have a service called data service, and it's still overriding the onStart command. We do have a member called service thread, which is a thread, and then we've got a handler called handler. We're still reading the information on the intent the same way, getting the username and password passed in from the activity, but now this is where it starts to change. We're creating a service thread, and if you're familiar with threading in .NET, this should look familiar. And then we start the thread. And we return from this method. So we've started the thread, we've returned from this method, which means the UI is now going to be active again. Meanwhile, on our thread, we're going to run this worker method. And the worker is going to call our customer service and attempt to log in. And again, we're looking for result and result returned, both to be true for the login to have succeeded. We have to do one more thing besides just show a toast message, which is the way we did it when the service was basically on the UI thread. We need to use our handler to post it. In Windows code and Windows Mobile code, and in Android code, it's not advisable to try to update the UI thread from a background thread. In most mobile operating systems, including Windows Mobile and Android, you'll get an error right away. Sometimes in Windows Desktop you can get by with it, but your results can be unpredictable, so it's just not a good practice at all. So we use a handler post to post this back to the UI thread. And that's all there is to a traditional .NET threading service. Now this is our data intent service. In this case, it descends from intent service, and our override is different. Our override is now called handle intent, which passes in the intent. We get the intent extras for username and password, same old way. And we call our customer service in the same old way. And we do a handler post for the login results. The difference here, as you can see, there's no threading member. Because it's an intent service, the onHandle intent is actually called on another thread. The threading is handled for us automatically by the Android operating system. So that's a little bit of a convenience. The only issue with it is you don't really fully control the timing of that. So there can be the potential for a delay because the Android operating system is in control of the scheduling. If we take a look at our activity, we have the usual text views and start buttons. And to start our .NET service, we're doing the same old thing as we did when it was in foreground, which is just to call the start service. So nothing has changed here at all. For the intent service, we just call out a data intent service. Same thing, we call out a start service. So they're basically called the same way. It's just that one does the threading automatically for us. And we'll run both of these. So we'll start the traditional .NET threading service. You can see the button gave control of the UI fairly quickly. and then the service login succeeded. And we'll start the intent service, same thing, and same result. So both of those ran the background service in a background thread and not the UI, so they didn't block. So we've seen how to run the service in a background thread, but we've basically called a toast message from those threads with the results. But what if we actually want to pass the results back to the original activity? And that's what we'll take a look at in the next lesson.